that. On behalf of Sarah, Kate, Katie, and Rosie, I'd like to welcome you to this Creative Europe Desk UK event, which will be focusing on the third country participation and being an associate partner. Today's conversation follows last week's morning coffee event, where we looked a bit in more detail into the new Erasmus Plus calls for the creative sector as well. Both last week's and today's event form part of a suite of conversations that we will be putting forward to the sector in the next 3 months, as the calendar moves closer to the end of 2020, when the UK is due to leave the EU. The aim of these events is to explore future alternatives in which the UK sector can still engage with our European partners in the event that the UK no longer participates in the new Creative Europe programme, as has been published in February of this year. So we'll keep you up to date with upcoming events through our newsletter, and we'll be publishing as many resources as possible around future alternatives in our website as well. So just asking you to keep a close eye on these. And a last word from me, just to thank our guest speakers for today, Climene Christoforou from D6 Culture, Alexander Buchler from the University of Wales Trinity St David, and Nicholas Zekulin from the National Youth Orchestra Scotland. All of them, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to participate and take front stage in this event, sharing their expert knowledge and best practice across their peers. So thank you all, and over to you, Climene.
Thank you, Isabel, and hello everybody. It's really nice to see some familiar names there, although I'm sad not to see all of your faces. I'm going to try sharing the screen. I tried this yesterday and it didn't work very well, so bear with me one moment as I keep my fingers crossed. Are we on? Okay.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. No?
Nothing yet. Come on now. There we go. Yeah, it's perfect.
Perfect. And
You're just on mute.
Climene, you're on mute.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Oh, glad to see the technology working. Okay, I'm here. I'm in the room. Hello, everybody again. So my name's Climene Christoforou, and I'm a director of D6 Culture in Transit. We're visual arts producers based in the northeast of England with a really long history of working transnationally and working on Creative Europe programmes for almost as many years. Our current Creative Europe programme, bear with me as I work this online, is called Contested Desires. So this came from really from an observation of the rise of populism across Europe and indeed globally, partly out of the Windrush scandal in the UK, to look at how colonialism impacts our culture today, and seeing this not just as a UK issue but as a European one. Sorry, the image that you saw there is from an artist called Mia Georgis, and it's part of the video and film program that we are running. So here you see the artist Akila Bertram, who's an artist based in Leeds, and here she was responding in Lagos to the monuments that had been erected to celebrate the Portuguese colonizers. So our partners on this particular project are in Portugal, in Spain, in Cyprus, in Italy, and in Barbados. So Barbados here serving as our third country. Fresh Milk is the partner that we have there. So I'm speaking to you today from Cyprus. It's very warm. I have the aircon on, so if it starts making a noise, somebody let me know. I'm here because we decided in December, having done quite a lot of research prior to that, that the result of the UK election meant that we were going to leave the EU despite all of our hopes. And so we went about setting up an EU sister organisation to D6, and this was launched, well actually I'm launching it this week, but it was established slightly earlier in the year with the idea of being able to pursue our European portfolio and to make connections in in Cyprus, of course, within Europe, of course, but also within the Middle East. So within this session today, we're going to hear from two other speakers, but my job really is to introduce you to the notion of a third country, because often we haven't peeled it back to think what this is. So within the EU, a third country is a country that is not a member of the European Union, as well as a country or territory whose citizens do not enjoy the European right to free movement, as defined in Article 2(5) of the Regulation EU 2016, etc. So I think it's just worth thinking about why the EU is interested in working with third countries. So here is a quick image here of a programme that we worked on a couple of years ago called Corners of Europe, and we worked in Kosovo with the Prizren Film Festival. Really lovely festival if ever you get the chance to go. So within the EU, and we're thinking about the field of culture here rather than other areas of interest. So within the field of culture, in 2018, a new European agenda for culture was published. It had three objectives. The first, to harness the power of culture for social cohesion and well-being, and the second, supporting culture-based creativity and education and innovation for jobs and growth. So both of those objectives will be familiar to those of us running Creative Europe programs. It's the kind of priorities that we have to consider. But the third objective within the European Agenda for Culture is that of strengthening international cultural relations. And here we kind of get to see why there is an interest in working with third countries. So under that objective, again, there are three further objectives. To support culture as an engine for sustainable and social economic development, to promote culture and intercultural dialogue for peaceful intercommunity relations, and to reinforce cooperation on cultural heritage. Again, I'll just pause on those a little bit more because it does give us an understanding of what they are looking for in terms of why we might work with third countries. This is an image I took in Ukraine a couple of years ago working with the Culture Bridges programme. So under the support culture as an engine for sustainable and social economic development, there's an interest in working with groupings of countries together. So programs like the Eastern Partnership Culture Programme on the outskirts of the edges of Eastern Europe, the Africa, Caribbean and Pacific Culture Programme, or the Med Culture Programme working in the Mediterranean countries and countries, not just the EU ones. So this programme specifically looks at jobs, growth, social and economic development. The second area is around intercultural dialogue, and again, this is something really familiar to us with with Creative Europe programs, and looking for peaceful solutions, peaceful relations. Again, I picked out just a few things here, but in order to have these actions for peaceful intercultural and intercommunity relations, there are a number of factors that they identified as part of that agenda. One was to create cultural focal points within EU delegations. Okay, that's not something we can necessarily answer, but a good thing in itself. The second is the EU approach to the development of regional strategies. So thinking about the policy areas, linguistic factors, availability of funding, not just within one country, but within regions. So some of you might be aware that we had a call this year from the Creative Europe programme for the Western Balkans, which was which closed. In fact, they were announced just quite recently. So all in all, these are projects which promote tolerance, peace and prosperity and social cohesion for disadvantaged often communities. So the third area then is in working with third countries or working outside of the EU is to reinforce cooperation on cultural heritage. Again, I pulled out a couple of things here. So very much thinking about heritage at risk and the way that the EU cooperates with third countries to protect their cultural heritage against trafficking, looting and destruction. And the image that we see back here is working very closely with UNESCO, providing assessments and safeguarding measures for cultural assets affected by a conflict. And the second, again, is around social cohesion, so working in the field of heritage in order to support neighbourhood communities and relationships. So an example here is the Silk Road heritage corridors in Central Asia and Afghanistan, and strengthening the contribution of cultural heritage to their prosperity and peace building. So this is what we know. And we don't know a lot, but this is what we know. We know that we are leaving the European Union. We know that we remain part of the broad landmass of this thing called Europe, but we know that our relationship to the EU is different from any other European country. In terms of the Creative Europe programme, the countries that are part of the Creative Europe programme, which are not part of the EU on the whole, tend to be accession or pre-accession countries, so we're very much related to the relationship with the EU, or they tend to be Norway, where they've devised a separate way of working. So for the UK, neither of those models particularly fit who we are, so it is very new ground for us. What we do know is that we've got our friends at the Creative Europe desk across the UK, and it's great that you're there to help us in the next couple of months, were we to be looking to enter into programmes with colleagues in this next round. The other thing we know is we can get some understanding of what's worked for other cities and in other countries. And in 2019, the British Council produced a report on existing third country relationships to the programme, and it's worth having a look at it. And I think we can share the link probably after this is at the end of all of this or later. So there's a lot that we don't know. The UK as a third country doesn't specifically feature anywhere, in fact, in any of the agendas for culture. So geographically, of course, we're Europe, but not being signed up to the programmes. This is, as I say, again, very new territory. The new guidelines for the 2021-27 Creative Europe programme haven't yet been published. And the DCMS programme, the DCMS UK replacement programme, again, is still an unknown thing. Certainly and I believe most of us, don't have any concept of its scale. We don't know whether it's going to promote transnational cooperation or favour bilateral cooperation, which is something much more familiar to trade practice in the UK. We don't know whether it's going to be based on research or whether it's going to be based on production. We don't know whether it's going to be based on the generating an income, etc. So it's really, really unknown to us at the moment. We also don't know how, and if at all, it dovetails with the Creative Europe programme as it stands at the moment, and as will be known to our friends and partners across Europe. So what can we do? Well, I think it is really important that we understand what it means to be a third country. It's really important that we can help our friends and colleagues across Europe know how they can work with us. So we need to help them to get this right as well. We need ultimately to give reassurance that national funding is coming on stream to help UK engagement in future programmes. But of course, until we know this, we can't give this reassurance. I think we need to continue to engage in European networks to strengthen UK presence and opportunity, and of course to advocate for the value of international cooperation, maybe specifically not just international but European. And I guess really importantly is we need to keep, I think, talking to each other and sharing these first steps that we're taking as outsiders. And I don't know whether the British Council might be able to support us in creating some kind of platform to continue these discussions, because I think it's us who are dealing with it are going to be the ones who know the most and can therefore help the rest. But finally, we've not yet got a deal, so everything remains very uncertain to us all. So on that note, I'm going to pass over to Alexandra. And we're going to swap over, I believe.
Yeah, we're going to swap to Laura, please. If you need to pin the BSL interpreter.
So thank you for that. I'll hand over to Alexandra, who will just tell you a little bit more detail about actually working with third country partners. At the end, please, we're going to keep our presentations relatively short so we have enough time for you to be able to have conversations with us and ask questions yourselves and share the knowledge that you've got, because really we are no more experts than many of you who are sitting here today. Alexandra, when you're ready.
I'm ready. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And can you see the presentation?
We can see it.
Yeah.
I think you might want to make it full screen.
How do I do that?
So on the bottom bar, Alexandra.
Bottom bar.
On the, oh no, not that bar, not that bottom bar. The bottom bar of the PowerPoint. You'll see there's a little thing that says comments on the right-hand side.
Bottom bar of the PowerPoint. Sorry, comments.
Where underneath where it says click to add notes, there's a little bar that says notes, comments, etc.
At the bottom of the page, Alexandra.
Gosh,
There. You're not that one.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
the next one.
Next one.
Next one. Next one again. And the next one again, and then you're there.
Oh, sorry.
The one before that.
The one with the little square, that's it, yeah.
Okay, here we are. Okay, thank you very much for guiding me through this process. I'd like to thank our colleagues from Creative Europe UK desk for organizing this session and all the other sessions that have helped us navigate this very difficult path. I'm Alexandra Buchler. I'm the Director of Literature Across Frontiers, and we are based at the University of Wales at Trinity St David. What I'm going to do, I'm going to speak a little bit. I'll take you through a few projects that we have done. I'll give you, first of all, a bit of background. So LAF was established with the support of the culture program in 2001. So we have been around for almost 20 years. And we deal with literature and, of course, translation. And our key aim is to foster intercultural dialogue through literature and translation. And we have led a number of large-scale multi-partner projects and have acted as a platform, as a hub, as a catalyst for new connections and initiatives. Currently, we have 3 Creative Europe funded projects. One as a lead and 2 as partners. So we have been kind of hanging on. Our work very much focused on working across Europe, working with numerous partners, but also on connecting Europe with other global regions. And we have been doing this for around 15 years. We have worked mainly in Asia, the Arab world, and the MENA region on the whole, including Turkey. And we did a lot of work with Turkey and in Turkey before it left the Creative Europe program. I'll show you a couple of images because it livens up the presentation. But here we have the first case study. And this was a project called the Mediterranean Translation Program, which we did with the Anna Lindh Foundation and a number of universities in the MENA region and partners in our EU project. So what I'm doing with these case studies is showing the range of activities that we have actually managed to do with Creative Europe and before that, culture funding. So we have never, for instance, applied for the program specifically targeting third countries or neighborhood countries. We have done all this with funding under Creative Europe and the previous program. So this was one of them. You will always see the partners, locations, and financing. And so I won't go into detail. It's really just to show you the range of activities and what we aim to do through our projects is we want to give opportunities to practitioners, to writers, translators, but also professionals who, for instance, run festivals or manage venues, etc., and publishers, of course, and others who work in the sector. And of course, it's no secret that the involvement in outside Europe, in cultural activities outside Europe is really quite unequal across Europe. So there are countries where professionals really don't get a chance to engage with countries outside Europe or with regions, except through their embassy, cultural attaché, and so on. So we're trying to kind of achieve a situation where European literary professionals can actually work outside Europe and can can discover other perspectives, can grow creatively. We often speak about markets, new markets. Well, what they're going to achieve through these projects will not make them rich, but it will make them rich in terms of their creative development. The World Express project was a fantastic project, which was actually co-funded by the British Council when it had its regional program. And it was a 2-year project, roughly, which brought together about 60 emerging writers from the wider Southeast Europe and from the UK. And it was a good example of how you can actually achieve the kind of setting up of links and creative connections that then continue once the project is over. So that's the kind of sustainability that we have always been looking for. This is a Serbian train. It's one of our iconic images, and from that project. We have also been working extensively in India. And we have been working mainly with festivals, with universities, and also with the EU delegation there. And as you can see, again, the funding has come from different sources. And I will talk about that a little bit later, how the funding aspect works. We have also worked with Southeast Asia, again, along similar lines, working with numerous partners and with our partners in Europe. But we also have worked with professionals from countries where we didn't have a partnership, a formal partnership. Again, a little picture break. And we have also worked in China. The work with India and China, I should stress, has been made possible very much thanks to the British Council and Wales Arts International, from where we received funding that form then part of the match funding for our Creative Europe program budget. This is an example of one of the projects, which was about showcasing the work of very young writers. It was quite a complex project, which started with a selection of microfiction from all the countries of the European Union that was then translated into Chinese, and each story was then illustrated by a Chinese young artist. So it was organizationally, it was really quite complex, but it was a lovely project. And I have to say that talking about literature, there's not the images are not as interesting as when you're presenting the work of a visual arts organization or performing arts organization. It's usually people holding a microphone, or shots of an audience, or printed pages, etc. Now, case study number 7 is very interesting because it is a project we have worked on with our Turkish partner, and they were, and actually, if you're familiar with what's happening in Turkey politically, you may be familiar with the organization called Anadolu Culture, which was our partner, and its CEO has been now in prison for over 2 years. When Turkey withdrew from the Creative Europe program in January, as of January 1st of January 2017, we were very unhappy about this, because it was a strong political signal, and it was about maintaining control over what is funded in terms of cultural activities. We still continued working with our partner. This is an example of a project we did with them, which was to set up a website which promotes Kurdish literature written in Turkey. And it's the first time that such a promotional tool and resource was actually set up in 3 languages, Kurdish, Turkish, and English. So it was very significant, but it was also something that we almost had to kind of, be quite low key about for obvious reasons. We still work with the organization in Diyarbakir, and we have recently recorded a panel discussion with European writers for their festival. So in summary, our work with third countries and the partnerships for us have always been based on continuous development of connections and activities in the 2 key regions that we have worked in. And so we have never been interested in one-off projects. We have maintained a relationship and connection with all the partners we have worked with. And we really do keep in touch, although we are not always involved in producing something with them. Now, the financial arrangements have always been based on in-kind local support or additional funding that we had to raise. So, as you probably know, third countries, but also associate partners or associated partners, the big difference is that their spending, and it may actually be quite considerable, it does not count in your expenditure, so it can't be used as matching funding, although of course it's very helpful when you're working on a project. Now, why is this work important? And Clemene already mentioned the various elements of the agenda for culture, but what we are trying to do is give concrete meaning to the EU external cultural relations as an ongoing process rather than one-off activity. We also want to complement local activities coordinated by the EU delegation and member states. In the field of literature, there's not much of that happening, I have to say. And we are interested in multilateral collaborative engagement rather than showcasing the culture of one country. We also want to provide, and I already mentioned this, equal international career and creative opportunities for participants from Europe, for professionals from Europe. And there's always a strong developmental and training element for both sides. So it's not that we go out there and, think that we can train people in the third countries. It's very much a training process and a process of learning for the participants from Europe. Now, as a lead organization, and we have always led the projects I'm talking about, it means doing third country work is very much quite labor intensive, and because we have to set up the activity, coordinate it, and secure the match funding and in-kind support. The local support is usually a platform for events, hospitality, promotion and marketing. And all this is very valuable, of course, when you're working somewhere, far from home. This support, as I said, however, does not count in terms of match funding and balancing the expenditure, but it's key to the success of the project. Now, all this can also create the kind of valuable expertise and based on experience that contributes to the development of EU external cultural relations policy. Now, some points for discussion, and this is very much, my own point of view. I have to say, for me, the departure from the EU has been a terrible shock. I was hoping until the last moment that, we would get a reasonable deal and that maybe even we would stay in programs like Creative Europe. This is not happening, so we have to be, pragmatic. But it doesn't mean that the grieving process is not, continuing. And I'm still trying to work out, and this is why I gave the title to this presentation, Reversal of Fortune. I'm really, grappling with the position we are in now as an organization that has led projects, developed projects in third countries, and now we are based in a third country ourselves. A few points. So what is the impact? It will have an impact on our status. Being barred from leading and participating as formal partners reduces cooperation opportunity and lowers our status. There's no question about that. And access, the impact on membership in European networks, for example, regional networks, which are based on relationship with the EU. I'm not sure that there is any clarity about this. We are, for instance, a very active member of the Anna Lindh Euro-Mediterranean Foundation. We have worked on projects with them, and I'm not clear on, what the UK's membership, what exactly it's based on, and how it will continue. And that's just one network. Participation, are we going to be barred from participating in policy development and expertise sharing, etc.? And of course, there's the whole funding issue. And also, we mustn't forget that the end of freedom of movement will have impact on the entire sector. And some questions about the future. What will it mean? Are we going to be kind of jostling for attention with a lot of other countries? Does the third country terminology matter? And to whom? I remember Clemene saying that it was kind of meaningless to their Barbados partners. What can we offer to continue being an attractive partner? How can we maintain our contacts, relationships, and reputation? All this are issues that Clemene mentioned as well. Now, setting up a legal entity in an EU country, I know that UK organizations have already done that, where it really mattered to them. We haven't, but my question is really how much of a help this is and how one can then operate as an entity which is still UK based. Will there be a replacement fund? What will it look like? What will be the aims? If there is going to be a replacement fund, how is it going to be set up? Will it be operating at devolved level or national level? So these are the questions that I think maybe could form some basis for discussion. And thank you very much. I hope this wasn't too long.
Thanks, Alexandra.
See how I can.
We're going to swap BSL interpreters as well. So back to Anna, please. And Clemene.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra, for that. It's really good to see some concrete examples and just so many ways in which you've worked with third country partners. It's super impressive. So very, very much the expert there. Thank you very much. So we're going to hand over now to Nicholas. So Nicholas, hello.
Hello there. Hi, everyone.
Waving at you. You can't see me.
I can't see you, no.
So Nicholas is from the National Youth Orchestras of Scotland, and I think he's going to help us, I hope, to understand what it means to be an associate partner, which is something that they have had some experience of. So Nicholas, can I hand over to you?
You can indeed. And I'm going to share my screen here, if that's okay. Bear with. I think you can all see this now. So yes, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all here. I want to thank Sarah and Kate for inviting me to come and speak. I've been quite overwhelmed by the two presentations thus far from Clemini and obviously from Alexandra. And so it's worth saying that the scale of what we're doing is very different, but perhaps might be equally practical for some of you to be aware of. We're also not a lead partner, so our experience here is very different. Clemini sort of mentioned, I think, at one point about how we are all taking first steps as outsiders. And so I was asked to talk about our experience as associate partners, but it's a very new experience. Arguably, we haven't even done it yet. And so we are also taking our first steps as outsiders. As we have only just transitioned from full partners in a long-standing partnership to associate partners. So my name is Nick Shakul, and I'm the Chief Executive and Artistic Director of the National Youth Orchestras of Scotland. So I thought I would give you a bit of quick context on who we are as an organization, what our partnership organization is about, and the specifics of our exchange that is funded thanks to the European Commission. So what is NIOS? We are the National Youth Orchestra pathway in classical orchestral music and in jazz music. We just recently celebrated our 40th anniversary, and we are now up to 13 distinct ensembles working across lots of different age ranges. It's a music education pathway, so unlike a lot of similar national youth orchestras, and unlike a lot of our partners in this membership organization I'm about to speak about, we work with young people from the age of 8 up to 25, and we are able to shepherd them through their music learning experience in classical and in jazz, as I mentioned. We also undertake a lot of extra workshop and outreach projects out with our pathway. What is FNEO? We are members of this network association of European pre-professional youth orchestras. So it was founded in 1994. NIOS is a founder member, and it's an association of organizations like ourselves, of predominantly national youth orchestras from around Europe. The definition of what youth is can vary dramatically from country to country. And so you can have as young as we have, which is down to as low as 8. And our colleagues at the National Youth Orchestra in Holland have taken youth to mean up to the age of 29. All told, there are 38 member organizations from across Europe, and there are also some third country associate partners as well. Their core activity, as they say, is intercultural dialogue between leading national youth orchestras of Europe. We meet regularly to discuss, and we have a forum. It's an exchange platform for music training and performance and mobility. And their prime purpose for our conversation today is they coordinate the European Commission-funded exchange program, Muse Exchange. So what is Muse Exchange? And it is a transnational mobility program for a new generation of European musicians. And the influence for that is to try and, as when it was founded, is to foster increased understanding across the countries of Europe. So that core activity as part of the exchange is the student exchange. These are short-term mobility projects, often involving a handful of musicians on each occasion, embedding themselves within a different national youth orchestra and joining them in all of their preparations, rehearsals, learning experiences, ultimately concerts and tours. There's also a training program, very focused for often 2-3 day period, working on developing extra musical abilities and skills that these young musicians, as they emerge into the profession, might require as teachers, as performers, as broader artists. As part of that, there are also what we call manager site visits, but essentially those are professional exchanges, CPD career professional development for managers in orchestras from across the exchange, where they can meet as well and share ideas of good practice. And finally, there are also very focused bilateral chamber music exchanges between two project partners with a distinct focus on chamber music and exchange of ideas and ultimately performance outcomes. And so here's an example of all four of those things coming together. We hosted in our offices in Glasgow in fact, almost exactly 1 year ago today. Very different times. And so this was a combination of the students mixing and exchanging. There was the boot camp, so they were developing their skills. There were managers there also developing their professional skills. And here was a chamber music exchange with 5 musicians who met that weekend and put together a performance. So the exchange itself first started informal exchanges between members shortly after foundation of the network in 1996. Over 850 participants in that time. I think that number is actually a little out of date, and I suspect we're closer to 1,000 by now. So in relation to European funding, a pilot project was started in 2009 with co-financing from the European Commission. And then since then, we've undertaken a series of cycles all the way up to 2020, which has just concluded. We have just submitted our final reports on that. And that has led us to where we are today, which was how we would respond to the new cycle for 2020 through to 2022. We obviously had some difficult decisions to make in relation to our eligibility, as was made aware as part of the funding process, that eligibility criteria would be complied with for the entire duration of the grant. And of course, we entered this cycle not being entirely aware of where we might be as a member state. And we were also conscious of the fact that our involvement could have an influence on the assessment. And so we made a decision, and this was thanks entirely to ongoing conversations with our good colleague at the Creative Europe desk here in Scotland, with Kate Deans, who guided us throughout. And we made the choice to step down in this partnership from full partner level to associate partner. We felt that gave clarity to the project, and meant that there were no provisos as we submitted the application as a federation, that we could be entirely clear of where NIOS was going to sit through the entirety of the cycle. And of course, at the time of submitting the application, there was absolutely, well, in fact, we're no further forward, are we, in terms of what the final withdrawal agreement is. So we felt it would, again, to provide clarity, that was really, really an important feature. And then, of course, as we then subsequently found out in March 2020, after the application had been submitted, but before we'd had the result, it was confirmed that the UK government would not continue participation beyond 2020. So what were the outcomes then of the application? FNEO's application ultimately was successful and received very high marks indeed. It's allowed NIOS to continue in the scheme, and it has not been affected by the ongoing Brexit negotiations. Our involvement is broadly similar to that of third countries and other European nations that are engaged as well. So as I've given examples here of Norway, Canada and Colombia are also involved as associate partners. We still maintain our full membership of FNEO. We still very much see ourselves as European, and the Federation made a great show at a recent conference of stating the same back towards us, that they very much see us continuing as Europeans. However, ultimately, in taking a different step, as I say here, we have clearly fewer opportunities for young musicians, and that is the most important outcome for us, and is a hugely disappointing one. Also, there's the reputational issue. It is interesting to see the different way in which our conversations happen within the Federation. And so it was a disappointing decision to make. However, I think we all feel very confidently that it was the right choice to make at the time, and given what we knew about both the impact of Brexit and what we knew in terms of where we were at in terms of the funding cycle. That was a very quick whistle-stop tour. If any of you want any more information about any of these organizations or the partnership, they're all there. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Nick, thank you very much for that. Do we need to swap over now for signers?
Yeah, please. We're going to swap to Anna, to Laura.
That's great, thank you. So it gives us a little bit of time now to just for everybody to hear from the rest of us who are here, because as I say, we are not experts. We are just some people on this journey, and you know, as both Nick and Alexandra have said, a journey that we wouldn't necessarily have chosen to have taken, but we find ourselves where we are. So it'd be really good to hear from you if you have any questions for any of us, or if you'd like to share any experiences that you have had of working with third country partners. And I guess what's quite interesting for us is to hear where, of course, it's great to hear successes, but also to hear where things could have been done differently, or where you encountered an issue which was unusual or strange to you. I'm just trying to understand how the hell I do this. I can see a hand up. So Jana Robert.
Hi there. I am the project manager for the Bridge project, which is a collaboration project between Scottish Ensemble and Ensemble Resonanz in Germany, the PLMF Music Trust in Estonia, and the Trondheim Soloists in Norway. And we were due to have a festival in May, which has, of course, had to be postponed, and we're still working through how we're going to continue the project. Our funding has been extended. We are looking eventually to possibly submit a new application for the network part of the project. And we are currently the lead partner, so it would just be interesting to sort of talk a little bit about the impact that would have on the project, or whether it would basically mean we'd have to start from scratch as an associate partner, as we wouldn't be able to be the lead partner anymore, and the sort of ramifications for us on that.
I'm sure others will have something to say to that, Jana, but if I quickly come in, and can I just ask, next time people put their hands up, can we see your faces as well? Because we're just speaking to ourselves otherwise, so just identify yourselves too. We have a similar issue with our Contested Desires programme, where we are wanting to continue it, and we are the lead partner. So this is a journey that we're travelling on as well. Obviously, we cannot be a lead partner, and we cannot be indeed a partner on it. So our interest now is to find out what we can do and what elements we can offer to the programme as a third country partner, of which we think there are some. But of course, what we can't do is run the programme. That has to be handed over to another one of the partners. Does anybody else have any experience of that, or is anybody else going through that process of changing from lead partner to associate or third partner in the next round?
Clemeni, I just wanted to chip in and say I can't see your video at the moment, but that might just be the connection.
Well, that's because I turned it off. It's getting dark here, 2 hours further south. Yeah, does anybody else have any experience of, or is going through the experience of going from lead partner to third country in the next round?
Can I just ask you, Clemene, and also the previous speaker, Jana, are you talking about applying continuing the project by applying in the next round in the new program, or I'm a little bit confused about.
Yes. Jana, I can't talk for you, but for me, for us at D6, yes, we have identified who will take on the lead role in the program. We set the project up as a pilot, as a smaller Creative Europe program, right from the beginning, with the intention of making it a bigger one. So from the beginning, we had this intention to apply again to continue. We've established who will be the lead partner. But we're just now trying to work out what that means for us and what we can do.
Yeah, thank you.
Jana.
For us, I think we were hoping to apply for the next round, but due to the corona delay of our current project and still being currently still working out how we're going to continue that, I think there's basically a delay. So which basically also means it buys us a bit more time probably to work this out.
Okay, so I have Ellen's hand up. Oh, Ellen, we can't hear you.
I put my camera on. I've got two screens. So the camera that I should be looking at is on this screen, but actually your faces are on the other screen. So I'm sorry if I'll be moving from one camera to the other. I think thank you very much for all three presentations. Really very useful. Of course, I work with Alexandra, so I'm familiar with that one. But I think that it's interesting for us, all of us here, regardless of where we live, in the UK, to be thinking of whether, what's going on in terms of whether any replacement funding or any funds to assist in participation, money to be brought to the table, whether any of those funds are likely to come through devolved governments or through central government. And I'd like to know what discussions people are having, especially outside Wales. I think I'm quite familiar with what's going on here, but discussions that are taking place in Scotland, in England, in Northern Ireland, do we know whether there is appetite across the devolved governments, or do we think that it's going to be resolved as a UK-wide measure? Because, I mean, I'm a firm believer that if any UK-based organisation wants to participate in the next round, we have to have money to bring to the table. I think it would be, the most polite way, the way with the most humility, really, to approach the next phase of the Creative Europe programme. So that's the only comment I wanted to make.
I'm going to ask our British Council colleagues to perhaps say a little bit more, because you might know a little bit more than we do. We do know, though, that DCMS has been working on some form of mitigation fund, some form of programme, but we're not really that clear about how that will work. We do know that the devolved governments have taken different approaches to it, and Wales has been particularly active recently in pushing for continued involvement in the Creative Europe programme. But can I maybe ask our colleagues at British Council if you have something else to add to that, because you're closer to it than most of us.
Hi, Clemeni. Yeah, you're right in saying that not only the devolved nations, but partners like the British Council and BFI were able to feed into the multiple versions of the replacement funding alternative that was being worked out by DCMS. But at this point in time, we're all kind of waiting to hear. We haven't been able to see the final version that would have gone to Treasury last week. So at the moment, it's all kind of like a bit of a waiting game in terms of hearing if that final proposal went through, but also in what shape it went in. What I can also say is that because we had the opportunity to be actively engaged throughout the summer, and the different consultation opportunities that were created for the sector to voice their own opinion in terms of, give their own input in terms of the value of the Creative Europe programme for the UK and what they wanted to see continue retained as the value of it. That was for us the focus of not just for the British Council. I can say that with most certainty for the devolved nations as well, and all the partners that were involved in feeding back to the proposal, that the various iterations of the proposal that we were able to see, to put that point across. So how that looks like in the final version, we can't really comment at this point, just because we haven't seen that final version. But yeah, so it's a bit of a waiting game at the moment, and hopefully we'll hear more in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and just to add, just to add to that on the devolved administration side. So we're aware that devolved administrations, depending on the nation, are engaging with conversations with DCMS around this, but also at the same time, as I'm sure you're aware in your own context, that's not necessarily the only option that's being explored. So working collaboratively with these options being put together with DCMS, but also, for example, Scottish Government will be looking at other avenues that they might want to pursue, as they have stated that the preferred option is participation in the Creative Europe programme. So whatever is realistic then between those and whatever options ministers would like to pursue moving forward.
Isabel, can I ask you a quick question then? Do we understand that what's being developed will be wider than Europe only?
Yes, I think that's a fair assertion, because just because of the decisions that we know of until this moment, starting with the decision to not continue to participate in the program in the beginning of the year, and the time that has taken, obviously, in the conversations that have ensued at a top level in terms of finding an agreement. I think that that's the focus has shifted to be more encompassing of other geographic regions than just the EU. So I think we're going to see that through. This is kind of my own opinion based on the conversations that I've been party to. Yeah.
So how will that differ from the existing international funding?
Well,
I mean, international funding obviously varies across the UK, but what will be the difference then?
Yeah, well, just to say, and I can't really answer that, Alexander. I wish I could, or wish that any of us could, not specifically me. But what I can say is that is the type of feedback that we've been able to bring back to DCMS in our conversations. Also, substantiated by all of the evidence that was given, not just because we've been working with the program for 6 years and so we have enough evidence, robust evidence to put forward, but also because of the fact that the sector itself was saying exactly those same things throughout the summer. So there are multiple opportunities, and obviously we have the notes from that, and we kept going back to that. To make evidence of those points, some of the points that we've just discussed in terms of what the geographic focus is, the UK-wide importance. That was definitely one of the strengths of the program in the UK. So all of those different elements that we're very aware, because you've been able to share that with us in the multiple evaluations that we've done through the years. All of that was put back to DCMS. Now, how that was kind of interpreted in the final version, that's the most important question, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Kate has written in the chat that there are things that she can share with us, particularly in relation to Wales. I guess anything else that comes through, Isabel, we are a kind of slightly disparate group of people, but it would be good for us to know. And if there's anything that we can do to lend our voices to make sure that Europe doesn't get lost in this global Britain conversation that the Brexit thing arose from in the first place, I guess that is our fear, really. So please use us as a resource where you can. I can see Jana's hand up, but before I take your question, Jana, what time are we due to finish? Are we due to finish now?
We were due to finish at 12:30, but if people need to leave, we can send the recording to them.
Can I take one more question then from the floor before we finish off?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've got Rosie. Oh, have I got Rosie? I've lost Rosie.
No, Rosie. Apologies, that was a mistake. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I have Jana again.
Just a very quick question in terms of practical guidance. First of all, a very big thank you to the Creative Europe Help Desk, in our case particularly Kate Deans, who's been hugely helpful in when our project officer was less than forthcoming in his correspondence. what happens? You say you're finishing sadly at the end of this year. Will there be some form of informal guidance still available and people to talk to after this period, or is that completely disbanded?
Is this directed at, sorry, this is at the desk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isabel, you were at the latest partnership board meeting, so you might want to come in on this. But our contract is until the end of the year. But of course, the partnership is looking at, ways in which we can set up some kind of support measures so that it's not completely cut off at the end of December. But I think that remains to be fully determined, because we do have some staff that, and anyway, Isabel, I'll let you kind of come in because I think you were at the most.
Yeah, I guess unfortunately I don't have a
Oh, you've muted yourself.
You're mute, Isabel.
Sorry, apologies. It was a little bit of a commotion here, but yeah, this is something that we're still investigating. Is probably the most honest answer that I can give you, is that, if we look through what we know and our own kind of contract with the European Commission, then that would mean that we would get to December, and that would be the kind of like the winding down. That's where we're working towards, the winding down of the Creative Europe UK desk, meaning that we wouldn't be in a position to officially support the projects beyond that. And I must say that that's also one of the reasons why we're very keen to have final conversations with any of the beneficiaries who have active projects, ongoing projects that go beyond 2020 before we get to December. So if you haven't set up those meetings, feel free to take that initiative and have conversations with us, one-to-ones, because really, it will be the last opportunity for us to look at the information that we have at that particular moment in time, which might mean, if it's in November, we might know something more about, the replacement funding and share that with you. If the new Creative Europe program for 2021-27 has been launched, then there might be some information there in terms of how the third country participation could look like from January onwards. So there might be still opportunities for us to guide you and to give additional information that we might be able to glean, whether that's coming from from DCMS or whether that's coming from the European Commission, or any other opportunities that we may be aware of that we'll be sharing, and we have been sharing through social media, through the website, through the newsletter. So this is as much as I can say. Beyond that, there's quite a bit of work that we need to do internally in terms of reporting and just making sure that we're kind of winding down everything that contractually we have to. But what comes after at this point in time is still very much, we need to get to the end of the contract. Now, what comes beyond that at this point in time is really not clear.
It is worth saying that there will, there are several members of staff who know that they have contracts running beyond December, but maybe, reallocated to, other projects, but we will still be around. So there will be, and we'll make sure that that's visible to you, so that, you have someone
how much of it is kind of how much of it will be able to be officially speaking to you and still providing the level of support that we have so far is the major question. I think that's what you're trying to ask, Anna, if I understood correctly. So to that particular point is hopefully we'll have a more positive answer to give before we get to the end of the year, but at this moment in time, no. But it is true that the team will continue to work in the first few years of the year, but the first few months of the year. But how that will look like, we're still to see.
And we really do encourage you guys to, if you spot any, we noticed on the iPortunist website, for example, that it wasn't very clear guidance on UK participation in that upcoming opportunities for the next year, 5 calls. And we have now had clarity that, we would have full participation in the upcoming 5 calls for iPortunists. So if you see anything like that in the meantime, do let us know, because we're putting together suggested text now to make that much clearer so that people can see from directly from the contact point that's eligible to them. So as much as we can do in the lead up to December, the better, obviously, too.
Yeah, and if we can add to that what I said in the beginning in terms of this is obviously we've been doing even before I started. The team has been obviously putting together a number of opportunities like this for us to look collectively into what the issues that you're looking at. I know that Alexander was talking about kind of the end of free movement, and so that brings up a whole host of other questions. And so we are looking into those and trying to create spaces like these where we can bring, you know, people who have expertise, and there's a lot of expertise across the sector, as you saw today, that we can pull from. And create these spaces for these conversations to happen. We obviously want to contribute for you to feel as prepared as you can to what's coming, even if it's not quite clear what's coming to us. But so just to add to what Kate was saying in terms of, from your side, if you see things and they're not clear and we can support, from our side, we'll be taking the lead as much as we can in hosting and convening these spaces from now until December for all of these different aspects of what might come in the future for us to look at.
Can I ask British Council colleagues, Creative Europe desk colleagues, as you still remain for the moment, whether it might be possible to share I don't know, something like a crib sheet, really, like what it means to be a third country, something that we can all use, so that when we're looking at continuing our relationships, we've got something that we can kind of have the answers to ourselves, because the information is all there. It's all there in the guidance that the EU produces, but it's not necessarily all in one place.
Yeah, Clemeni, we're putting that together now as we
Excellent.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah. I would really encourage people, though, to, as questions have come up, probably, you know, your brain's been jogged from this discussion, do send them through, because that really helps us make sure that we've got as much of it covered as possible. Because yes, there are some clear answers to some of these aspects, but of course, as soon as you start getting into different configurations of partnership working, who pays who incurs costs, what's in kind, what's not, all these kind of stuff, then it does actually start to get quite grey as well. So we're going to start off on the basics, the kind of basic stuff, but as people start asking more specific questions, we'll hopefully have either experience-based tips to then add into the mix, as well as guidance-based tips. But yeah, we want to have this as a kind of evolving document, but we do have a landing page that's about to be published that takes us through the first steps of just, you know, where we are logically.
I don't know whether there are more questions. If there are, that's fine. But I think that the BSL interpreters need to swap because they're exhausted.
I just wanted to clarify something that I'd heard Isabel say just now. So from the end of this calendar year, there won't be any UK-based support for any projects that continue as part of the Creative Europe programme, regardless of the length of, you know, of months and years left on the programme. So presumably we will just be contacting the officers at the agency and so on. So we can't expect any formal support from a UK-based, a UK-level support. And maybe, do we know whether that is the same position in the devolved nations, whether there will be a continuity in Wales and Scotland where there are separate desks?
I think that's going back to the partnership board needs to put something together for, you know, each of, you know, including each of the nations. I know that I will still be around at Creative Scotland, but that, again, that's informal support. And it is worth pointing out that in terms of support for beneficiaries, that's always been an unofficial, not actually endorsed by the agency as kind of support. But moving through COVID, we have stepped in a little bit more just to kind of create these spaces. But yeah, we will, obviously, we don't want you guys to be wondering about this for much longer. So as Isabel says, there will be a communication soon, just so you know kind of what's going on. And, you know, we want to leave you with as much support as is possible, but it's within the frameworks of what is possible. So
yeah. Thanks, just for clarity.
Kate, just to quickly come in on that. So one of the things, I know I kind of understand that you're not really there to support us during the actual happening of the project, but you've kind of got around it by creating these beneficiary events, which allowed us to share it with each other, which was, you know, a kind of a very useful way of doing it. And I guess it's a plea to see if we can maybe consider, you can call it what you like, but to consider another kind of platform that we can come together to look at these issues as we go forward, and to share between ourselves the experiences that we've had, because without you centrally pulling us all together, it won't happen.
Yeah, that's definitely been noted, Clemeni, and we are as enthusiastic about that idea as you are. So it's seeing what's kind of feasible. I know Isabel and Sarah have been discussing this a bit more too. So
yeah,
will be self-support from January. DIY, yeah. I think that will have to happen at least, so that we can meet and share, you know, how we're getting on. We're in a project, a full partner in a project which starts in January and runs for 3 years. So, you know, it is a bit scary that there won't be any formal support in the UK. Yeah.
We're very aware, as Kate said, this is what we're kind of having conversations about at the moment, but with the same sense of urgency that you've just expressed, Alexander and Clemeni. Just a little bit daunting to go into January, to go into 2021 with that particular context, where so many of the UK partners still very actively engaged in that, but with limited resources in terms of support. But what Ilian was saying is right, that you can still, obviously you can look to the project officers associated with the agency and seek support there. But and also again the plea to make use of the desk as much as you can on this side of the year.
So Sarah, I guess we've kind of come to the end. We've had a few of the same people speaking there at the end. Is there anybody who's not had a chance to say something or to ask something, who would like to say something or ask something?
If there's something that comes to you later on, you can just send an email through, and we'll be able to use that, you know, as subject matter for our next few events. So anything that you want to talk about, please just send it through, and we'll build our events around it.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be great to have feedback on where next to put our focus. And there's still spaces for our drop-ins tomorrow and next week if you would like an informal chat about all sorts of different things. So do go and have a look at the Eventbrite page, and if you'd like a chat with beneficiaries, then do come along.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. And
thank you very much. Presentation.
Yes, we have to start organizing ourselves for the new transition.
Yeah. But thanks so much for taking over and running that so fantastically, Clemeni and Alexandra, and thank you, Nick, as well, for speaking, and to Anna and Laura for providing their amazing
Thank you.
British Sign Language. So thanks all, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you so much.